And just like that, we are back. It is the 4th and 1 podcast coming to you live from Lancaster, Lititz, and Williamstown, Pennsylvania. It is the 4th and 1 podcast everywhere you get your podcasts. 4th and 1 podcast. Yeah, that's right. All of those words combined. Instagram at 4th and 1 podcast, TikTok at 4th and 1 pod. We should probably go and change that so they're all the same because we are sometimes good at this, but not always. It is, of course, your boy. He is back from the Hershey Squirts and a head cold. It is AKA the man who held it down last week. You guys did a 10 out of 10 job. Give it up down below in the comments for Captain Boring himself.
Let's go.
Micaiah, and of course his sidekick, the Red Rocket, the Red Panda, Mr. Timbuktu himself, NotCFBIII Insider.
That's me.
Gentlemen, hello. We have a little Commanders-in-Chief Cup, Commanders Cup, Commanders Trophy, whatever we want to call it, going on in the Dynasty League. So 10 out of 10, first of all. Currently, Micaiah took an L to Robert last night. Marshall lost to Rice, the Owls. Who? Fun fact for you, and we'll start things off with this. All of the coaches who coached the Owl teams in the FBS got fired this season.
I was surprised with Kennesaw State. Me and Robert talked a little bit last night as we were actually playing the game that Kennesaw State's coach got fired, and he's like, well, I think that they're looking at it as, you at least could be competitive, but if you're Kennesaw State, it wasn't like you were world beaters to begin with in the FCS. It's not like you were JMU winning conference titles and all of this, and then you make the jump and your team doesn't perform well and you're not competitive, and so you just show the coach the door without a full FBS recruiting cycle. That's kind of harsh to me, I think.
I'm just looking to see how long he was there before.
He was there since he built the program. 2015, 2016 was when the football program started. They started in FCS, given they're in Kennesaw, Georgia, which is a large part of the large Atlanta metropolitan area. I am attempting to find their records. Here they are. They joined the Big South originally from 2015 to 2021, of course, with the shortened 2020 season. They won the conference championship 3 times in that time period. With obviously 4 seasons. They moved to the ASUN Conference in 2022, went 5-6, and finished 5th in the standings of the ASUN, and then jumped up into the 2023 FCS Independent last year, with Brian Bohannon as the coach for all of them. I think the dude's going to get a coaching job somewhere. The question is if it's at the FBS level or the FCS level, because he built a program, but it's one of 4 schools in the 5 FBS schools in the Atlanta metro area. So it didn't surprise me, but at the same time, like, I was kind of surprised. Like, I would have been surprised if he would have been able to keep this thing going,
We have breaking news on the pod. Simeon, to answer your question, right before we came on, you asked me, did my wife Carrie go 5-0 in back-to-back weeks? The answer is no. She didn't go 5-0. She did go 5-0 in back-to-back weeks, just not this week. This week, she only went a measly 4-1. She is 40-20, 20 games above 500. At this point in time, I think we should just have her come down, have her do the picks live on the pod, and then just have all us copy them, because we're pretty awful. I'm 16-20, or I'm sorry, I did not update this. So I'm actually 17-22 on the year. With my locks of the weeks. Robert, after another 1-2, is 19-21. or I'm sorry, you're also 19. And then Simeon, you are 19 and 20 as well.
So what I'm hearing is it's anyone's game with 2 weeks to go.
Yeah, for sure. With 2 weeks to go, any one game. I need to have a hot 2 weeks here, though. Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna be tight. And just a reminder, for anyone listening, the loser of this has to do championship weekend pod in his underwear. That is socks optional, obviously, just like bedtime, as well as
Socks
underwear.
Optional.
Not optional. You have to wear at least underwear because we do post this on YouTube and we are quote unquote family friendly. Also, real quick, while we have the most retention, if you made it this far into the podcast, we would appreciate it immensely as we continue to build this thing and build a little platform and a little crew of you all fans. For whatever reason you guys like listening to our voice, if you subscribe, that would be awesome, and just helps with growing as well as just engaging down below. So far, who thinks Carrie should make an appearance for the last week? Maybe be our guest picker or something. Who knows for bowl games? Okay, never mind. I was going to have them comment down below if they wanted.
They don't have to comment. That's an easy one.
I'll
comment for them.
That is fair. So yeah, please like, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, but specifically YouTube and obviously like Spotify or Apple Podcast or whatever. Not too much else in the breaking news world besides, I'm assuming the Carrie news was the breaking news.
Yeah. That was the breaking. That was the breaking news. Yeah.
We'll still see obviously some rotation as the coaching carousel does pick up. I think we'll see some firings, and specifically, I think we're going to see quite a few resignings going to happen.
Biff Poggi got fired at Charlotte.
No way.
Bring him back to Michigan.
And then he got fired at Charlotte, and then he showed up at Monday's practice, and all the players were very excited. So he's no longer the head coach, but he's still, I guess, hanging around. I guess a billionaire doesn't have much to do. Yeah, bring him back, baby. Let's roll this thing back. Yeah.
So he'll show up.
He's got nothing else to do.
I mean, he probably doesn't have anything else to do. Also, I don't know why, if you're Charlotte, I don't know why you're firing that guy who clearly is liked by the players. You don't have too much else. You have one of your only stadium is only bigger than, actually, ironically enough, Kennesaw State Stadium, which again has such polite fans. You're good, Robert. Don't worry. Has such polite fans that they go back into the stadium and sit nicely and wait for the game to end after you storm the field, because you are 1-9 on the season with your one win being the Liberty.
I think for Charlotte, it has, talking about Kennesaw State not being competitive, right? Which I think we can all understand. This is Biff Poggi's second or third year here at Charlotte, and they just are not competitive at all. They beat Gardner-Webb by a point. They beat Rice by a point. Rice is pretty bad. They beat East Carolina somehow 55-24. I really want to know how they did that. But then ever since then, it's a 4-game losing streak. 51-17 loss from Navy. Memphis was a 5-point loss, but then Tulane was a 31-point loss, and South Florida was a 59-24 drubbing. So I just think that administration is like, okay, you can lose, but you at least got to be competitive. Yes, Robert.
So here's my other issue, I think, with Charlotte. Every big school in the nation should take a page from Charlotte. Charlotte has some of the toughest non-conference games on their schedule every single year. When you go back, like James, because James Madison's not in their thing, right? No, they're in America.
No.
So
yeah.
James Madison, North Carolina, Indiana. You go back another season. Maryland, Florida, I guess Georgia State, depending on how you look at it. They do had Illinois one year, Duke. They had Middle Tennessee State. They played Clemson when Clemson was number 1. You know what I mean? Like
you bring up a very, very good point about a non-conference
kind of
schedule,
which they're going to be 0-3 almost every year starting out because they're playing 3 teams just millennia above their talent level.
So then let's roll it into this, right? The college football playoff rankings is going to come out here in 24 minutes-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and we'll have live reactions to that, assuming that we don't wrap up this podcast in the next 24 minutes. Robert, last week, Georgia was penalized, right? 2 losses, penalized, all of this. But if we look at Georgia's schedule is just not easy, right? So just real quick, they played number 14 at the time, number 14 Clemson neutral site. Then they played at Alabama. They played at Texas. Then at Ole Miss, they played Tennessee. They play Florida, who's a 500 ball club. Auburn and Mississippi State, yeah, I'll give you that. And Kentucky, yeah, not great. So their schedule is very tough, but yet the complaint is that you're being penalized for playing good teams, albeit conference games, and yet you have someone like, I hate to do this, but Indiana, whose strength of schedule is 105th in the country, I believe. They haven't played any team better than 500 currently until this week, where they take on number 2 Ohio State. Their best win is probably 56-7 over Nebraska. However, Nebraska is now 500. Michigan is 500. Charlotte is 3-7. Northwestern's under 500. Maryland's under 500. Washington's under 500. Michigan State's under 500. So their schedule is just a whole bunch of average, and yet they're number 5 in the country, undefeated, but with a strength of schedule of 105. So what are your thoughts on the committee balancing strength of schedule when they're ranking these teams?
So I kind of was thinking about this, and I think the easiest option is for strength of schedule, we don't factor in the conference because you can't change that. You can't, if, you're Indiana, you're stuck playing Illinois, Michigan State, Northwestern, Maryland. You can't change that. That's right. No matter what, you have to play those guys.
Yep.
Like,
you got to play non-conference games. Yes.
And you can't sit in there and go and say, well, give me Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan every year to build your resume, and they won't do that. Right. So the SEC obviously just gets every ranked team under the sun because of SEC bias that happens. Case in point, Missouri. But
watch them still be 25 this weekend.
Yeah. I think that the strength of schedule should solely rely on your non-conference schedule, because then you're looking at it and saying, who are you making an effort to make your team better and improve yourself? So playing like Alabama, playing Mercer, that does nothing for you and your program other than get another win on the board. And for them to say, well, they beat Mercer by 56. That doesn't do anything. But if you go and it's like, oh, well, week 1, we played Georgia. Georgia was like, we played Clemson week 1. And, then you said, okay, we took some like Colorado, even though Colorado was shaky in the beginning, now they look better. Now your schedule looks a lot better. That's why I think the non-conference is where the strength of schedule should be built around those 3 games.
So should they change the metric and change it to non-conference strength of schedule, right? And
I think so, yeah.
And literally just judge strength of schedule can play into it, but now that we have these super conferences, I'm kind of with you. I think there should be another metric where it's non-conference strength of schedule. Now, what I don't want this to become is, because there is something healthy about an Alabama or about a Michigan paying an Arkansas State, paying a UNLV, paying a Fresno State to come in and play, because then the money gets passed down. It's more distributed throughout. Then Fresno State has a better group of players and they can only get better, and UNLV can only get better, that sort of deal, right? So there is something to be healthy about that. But I don't want every single non-conference game to be awful. Are you raising your hand? Do you have another point?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So in those scenarios, how you're paying obviously lesser schools to come and play,
right?
Is that where the NCAA finally gets off their feet and really starts the revenue sharing, to where each school is getting X amount, so you don't have to be paying schools to come here and there. Every school is going to grow no matter what. Yeah, if you're Ohio State, you're going to be a little bummed you're only getting $20 million, but your smaller schools are going to be pretty pumped you're getting $20 million. But then your profits, all that would offset, because Ohio State's obviously going to bring in double, if not triple, quadruple the amount of money that Charlotte would bring in.
Rev share in what exactly for the NCAA?
Well, we're just talking about how
the conferences are the people who negotiate TV deals, and that's where most of the people's monies, if it's not match day revenue or game day revenue, comes from. So my question is, what is the NCAA going to say? Because there's a legal precedent that they can't touch the TV money, Robert.
Right. It doesn't have to be TV money, though, because you can't sit here and act like that the NCAA is not making money off of it.
Your communist uncle's favorite point are you trying to make? Because the NCAA has what money? It's not like they have a tournament going on.
Listen, no one works for free, dog. The NCAA gets money. You cannot paint a picture where the NCAA does not get money.
$1.3 billion last year is what they made, by the way. The NCAA.
Yeah, but how much of that was from March Madness? Where they
it's
most of their money.
It's almost exclusively from March Madness. Yes.
So that's my point.
So it goes to the school. Yeah, it doesn't have to be because
I see
it's
your
not
point.
The broad picture of everything. The money's going to the schools.
See, this is a football podcast, not a college sports podcast.
Yeah, but that's how you go into one, and it affects all of them.
You're thinking big picture.
Well, okay,
and I'm thinking too small.
So
I guess.
So Robert, real quick, I think the NCAA, before they do that, they need to take baby steps. First step to this whole thing is to make all of the conferences play the same number of conference games in football. Because, okay, let's go to Texas real quick, right? So Michigan only has 3 non-conference games. Texas has 4 because they only play 8 conference games. So Michigan was number 10 at the time, even though they are not now. However, I do think Texas should get credit for scheduling a high-quality opponent, because, again, this is one of my biggest sport pet peeves. I need to put it in my little list that I keep for when college football makes these non-conference agreements. It's like 10 years into the future. You don't know how good the teams are. It should be like the NFL, where it's no more than 2 years in the future. In between Michigan, so around Michigan, they play Michigan week 2. They play Colorado State, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe. The combined total points allowed between those 3 opponents was 10 points. If you include Michigan, which they just decimated, right, it was 22 points allowed, and they scored 189 points. So so this is just going to say that something needs to be worked out. If you want to classify, and I think the best way is if the College Football Playoff Committee said, hey, starting in 2026, the new 14-team deal, right? The new 14-team, we are using a new metric, and it will be non-conference strength of schedule. We will take into account your strength of schedule, including your conference games and what conference you play in and all of that. But you guys need to start scheduling tougher opponents. And I'm not saying that Alabama and Ohio State have to play every year in a home and home. But Alabama, just like they did this year, went on the road to Wisconsin. Guess what? That's actually a quality opponent. Okay? That's a quality place to go. Right, exactly. Texas, Michigan's not very good. Scheduled Michigan, went on the road there,
they
right?
Have the highest strength of schedule, actually. They're number 1 according to College Football Network.
Michigan.
Strength of schedule.
It's pretty
well,
tough.
When you have Texas, who's like number whatever, and Ohio
State and Indiana,
and Oregon,
yeah,
and Indiana.
But Oregon, it doesn't even have to be all like Power 4 teams that you have to schedule. Oregon scheduled Boise State. That's actually a quality opponent, right? They didn't schedule the bottom of the Mountain West. It was the top of the Mountain West, right? So I think
you can still do that where you can buy yourself out, right? I think if you want to do Matthias thing, because if not, then all of a sudden everybody's going to be scheduling JMU and Boise State and Wisconsin, and they're not going to have any puff games, which is fine. I don't care. I'm on board for that. I'm on board with this. My whole thing, you would have to pay for them to play lesser teams, to play Kennesaw State. And I think then you would have to pay, quote unquote, the NCAA not to count that game against your record. I would be okay if you got mulligans so you could go play lesser opponents. But this is my whole point. College football isn't set up to be a strength of schedule. This was my point 3 weeks ago in the chat. Sorry. Isn't set up to be a strength of schedule ranking system. It is set up to take the best team from the SEC and the best team from the ACC and the best team from the Big Ten and put them all against each other and have them play each other. Why the College Football Committee hasn't done exactly that for the past decade at this point is beyond me, because it's right there. Our point for Robert, you sent the tournament for the Division II playoff yesterday or today, and they took the best teams and put them on they're ranked. It was an AP ranking, but they're ranked. And they're ranked in the region, and they put them in the region, and these guys were the best teams, without a question, in their division. I don't understand. We already have divisions. Why aren't we taking the best team from each division and making them play each other? If you don't want to do that and you want to have a discussion around strength of schedule, let's have a discussion around strength of schedule, but we're going to have a much deeper discussion around strength of schedule, because right now, the issue with playoffs and the college football playoffs is that you want to have a discussion around strength of schedule and a record. Pick one or the other. You can't have both.
All right, so we'll just leave that conversation there. We're going to actually talk about the games that had happened this past Saturday. It is already, I can't believe it, it will be week 13, so we're going to be talking about week 12. Can't believe it already.
Can I bring up a funny thing?
Thanksgiving. Yeah. Is on Thursday.
It's on Thursday. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. You're doing a great job. Since we're talking about last week.
Yeah.
And we're a fun facts podcast.
Absolutely.
The fun fact for this week is not a single Division I team that is based in the state of Florida won a college football game this past weekend. And bonus points to the group. Oh, go ahead, Makai. Sorry.
The Miami Dolphins saved them from being the state offer in football, because the Jaguars also lost, and so the Miami Dolphins hung on.
What about the
Tampa
Bay Buccaneers this past weekend?
I think they did it 2 weekends in a row. I think the state of Florida actually did this, Simeon, what you're talking about, 2 weekends in a row.
Took it out.
Florida beat LSU.
This is it must be from 2 weekends ago then.
Well, I was like. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So the Buccaneers lost, the Jacksonville Jaguars also lost, and then the Miami Dolphins again 2 weeks.
This was from 2 weeks ago.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
I was like, wait, that was actually one of the bigger upsets this weekend. Was LSU losing?
So great. Think about that. Forgot.
Great transition, Robert. Let's just get right into LSU Florida. real quick. Did not expect this. This is basically a season of if you don't expect it, it's probably going to happen. And when you do expect it or want it to happen, it's not going to happen. So Indiana fans, sorry, you're SOL this weekend come Ohio State. Robert, what'd you see? Florida, Billy Napier, he gets that promise for next year for the AD, then he gets routed by Texas, and then he comes back the next week and he beats LSU.
What a difference DJ Lagway made.
Oh, dude, he's so good, isn't he?
If he doesn't get hurt against Georgia, they probably beat Georgia. They does not play against Texas, they get routed by Texas, and he comes back against LSU and wins. So it kind of puts into perspective that Ole Miss better be on watch this weekend, because Ole Miss is going to the Swamp. It is a noon game, and that could be trouble if DJ is healthy and is rolling.
Brian Kelly gets into it with his wide receiver Hilton Jr., who John Boy, is that his name?
If he would just stop jumping at the
ball.
Yeah,
so he
keeps
jumping, and he's like, I want you to stay on your feet. That's his name, right? John Boy?
John Boy, yeah.
John Boy, dude, we love you.
Jomboy, yeah.
We love you. I love your content there. He yells at his receiver. Then later in the game, a receiver's yelling at Brian Kelly. How hot is Brian Kelly's seat? 10-3, 10-3, 6-4. It breaks a streak of 8 straight seasons. He will have at least won 10 games. This dates back to his time at Notre Dame. How hot is that seat on a scale of 1 to 10, Robert?
Probably 5. I don't think it's too hot yet. I think it's warming up, I would say, because I think people are going to start getting really frustrated. But I also think people are seeing like all the news, obviously, with Bryce Underwood coming to LSU. So that's kind of like, they're like here. It's like a roller coaster right now,
sure.
I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they finish 6-6, I think it goes to like an 8. And they're like, hey, what's going on? Like, we literally were 6-1 and ready to walk into the playoffs, and now it's terrible.
Simeon, did you watch any games this weekend?
Yeah, I actually watched the Florida game. Sorry, I am down a Wikipedia rabbit hole per usual as the producer.
Do you have any thoughts on Florida LSU? Robert, you're frozen, so you're just gonna have to keep talking.
Yeah, I know. I see that.
We'll get the recording there at the end. The Florida LSU game, I didn't see anything from LSU. For me, it was more of a Florida. I honestly think the re-signing of Billy Napier helped the team because they just looked like a more complete, more motivated team against what we all thought was a pretty good LSU team. Who had their moments and didn't have their moments. To answer your question on how hot Brian Kelly's seat is, I think he's one of the guys who is more likely. Hold on, we're having technical difficulties. He is leaving and rejoining NotCFBIII, so he'll come back in and we'll be fine. I think he's one of the guys who's more likely to retire just because of the landscape changes. Than he is to get fired. If I'm LSU, who am I going to go get, dude?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't want to get down this rabbit hole too far yet with Brian Kelly. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. This was going to be hard because you're right with the landscape changes. Jaden Daniels again looks like the top rookie quarterback right now in the NFL. So he is taking a major step back from Jaden Daniels, who was a consistent dual threat, to now Garrett Nussmeier, who's more of your traditional pocket passer. The game I was really watching in this 3:30 window, and I had the 4 on, is because it was one of my locks of the week, which was South Carolina and Missouri.
Yeah.
And the only reason this game was 34-30 South Carolina is because South Carolina kept going for it on 4th down and not getting it. And then Missouri would just turn around and score. South Carolina had 462 total yards of offense. They each had a turnover. They each had almost equal number of first downs. But Missouri just kept getting getting the ball back because South Carolina would get stopped on fourth down. Missouri also at one point in the fourth quarter with 1 minute to go had an 89% chance to win. And then South Carolina took it from them and scored with 15 seconds left to win the game. But yeah, they were up at one point. They were up 21-6 at halftime. Then Missouri comes out and scores a touchdown, and then South Carolina gets stopped again. Missouri then turns both of those into points, and then it's kind of back and forth. So Missouri found an offense. Their quarterback Brady Cook actually did play in this game. Lenore Sellers was awesome. 21-30, 353, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. They still have a shot, an outside shot, to make the college football playoff, to make the SEC title game. So the South Carolina is like that team, that USC team from, I want to say like 2016, that started like 1-3 and then went on like an 8-game run and finished 9-3 and then played Penn State in the Rose Bowl, and it was electric. But it was just a team that no one wanted to play because they got so hot and they found their rhythm with their offense. That's who South Carolina is right now. And I don't know South Carolina's upcoming schedule, but it's not
Wofford at 4.
It's that's not very hard. And then Clemson.
And then
right?
Clemson is noon on ESPN the following weekend.
So there's everything in front of them, and the only game they really lost was Ole Miss 27-3. LSU, they had a 17-point lead. Bama, they were trailing by 14.
Talk about a guy who was on the hot seat and now
now is not. But he did this 2 years ago with Spencer Rattler too. Do you remember that?
He keeps doing this. This is the whole part about Beamer Ball, and what I love about SEC shorts is that they just, like, if you watch the SEC shorts, it's like this proves their point. They're just a drunk frat boy.
Oh yeah,
airing through the SEC, and they don't necessarily know what's going on and when it's going to happen, but they're just going out. The hardest place to play this year is Columbia, South Carolina at night when they're wearing their all blacks.
Absolutely.
Do we want to pause and come back? We can cut this out once we get Robert sorted out.
No, we're good. I think we can just keep moving right along. We're just recapping. He's just restarting his computer. We're good.
Okay. I'm glad you're on this. So yeah, shout out to the Gamecocks, South Carolina. I watched a lot. I watched the evening game. I turned off the BYU. Let's go over there. The BYU Kansas upset. That was one that I kind of called in my head. Yeah. And I keep doing that. I keep calling them in my head and not calling them out loud.
Well, everyone
foreshadowing.
Everyone kind of really also called this because Kansas, Jaylon Daniels is back healthy.
Shout out.
And now this Kansas team led by Lance Leipold, right? They're 4-6. They can get back to be bowl eligible, but now they're ruining Big 12 seasons. They ruined Iowa State. They ruined BYU's perfect season, and now they got a shot at Colorado. Colorado's only a 3-point favorite on the road.
Oof.
Kansas is feeling it. Game's going to be played at Arrowhead because Kansas is doing renovations to their stadium, and instead of having cranes in the background like Vanderbilt, shout out Vanderbilt.
Shout out Vandy.
They just are playing at the soccer stadium.
Give Diego another year of eligibility. He doesn't deserve it. It's the rules, but give him another one anyway.
He doesn't know. Diego doesn't deserve it. But
I don't know why he made that law, why he sued that dude. You played in the NCAA for 4 years. These are the rules, dude.
Yeah.
Even with your transfers. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
BYU, Kansas. BYU outgained them by over 100 yards. Won the turnover lost the turnover battle by 1. 10 more first downs. 1 time of possession.
2025 is the year of time of possession.
Turnovers.
2024, sorry.
So Kansas went down, scored first thing, right? 7-0.
Yeah.
Then we have punt, field goal, BYU. Punt, touchdown, BYU. Field goal, Kansas. So it's 10-10.
Yeah.
Then BYU goes on an 8-play, 70-yard drive. And at the Kansas 5-yard line, Jake Retzloff throws an interception. Okay? So
Yep.
Kansas gets out of the half, tied at half. BYU hits a field goal. Kansas punts. Kansas, during that punt that Kansas has second play, it bounces up. I got to scroll down. It bounces off a BYU player. Kansas recovers at the BYU 3-yard line. One play, 3 yards, touchdown. Kansas is up 17-13. And then it's punt. Kansas throws an interception. Punt, downs, end of game. So really, BYU kind of controlled this game, but it was turnovers. It was the interception at the 5-yard line at the end of the half, and then the turnover off of the Kansas punt that led to this. So Kansas blew out Iowa State, then kind of got lucky against BYU. Robert is back. He's back. Welcome back. We were just talking Kansas BYU and how really BYU lost this game more than Kansas won. I really didn't get into it just until now to realize that BYU threw an interception right at the end of the half at the Kansas 5-yard line. And then 2 drives in, they force Kansas to punt. It bounces off a BYU player down at the 3. 1 play later, it's a Devin Neal touchdown to go up 17-13, and that's the final score there.
Yeah. I kind of feel like we figured that BYU eventually would kind of falter somewhere. Somewhere we just figured they were going to falter, whether it was their own doing or the team was just going to be like better at that point. But
and then finally, as the ranking show has begun, so we will get into live and rankings. Let's talk about the game of the weekend, which was Tennessee, Georgia, at least leading into the weekend. I watched this game fully. Tennessee goes out 10-0 right off the bat. Bim, boom, bam. Josh Heupel is only averaging 13 points against Georgia in his last 3 or 4 meetings, however long Josh Heupel has played Georgia. But for every other team, it's, up and down the field all the time. So it's 10-0, and we think, oh, here we go again. Carson Beck isn't very good. And then Carson Beck becomes Patrick Mahomes. So Georgia goes punt. Tennessee goes touchdown. Georgia goes punt. Tennessee goes punt. Georgia punt. Tennessee field goal, 10-0. And then Georgia goes on their drives, goes touchdown, field goal, end of half, touchdown, punt, touchdown. And Carson Beck lights up the scoreboard, 25 of 40, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns. More importantly, Robert, no interceptions. Now, the running game definitely was not there at all still. Georgia only ran for 106 yards, 3.4 yards a carry. But, Robert, I didn't also realize that Georgia had not played a home game in 37 days. So maybe Carson Beck was just a little homesick. Does this say more about Georgia or more about Tennessee? Which way?
I would say it says more about Georgia. Just because Carson Beck finally figured out he had two legs and actually used them, which is something that he wasn't doing. And by him running, and there's been a couple times where they were third and medium, third and long, and he got the first down, extended the plays, extended the drives with his legs, and he wasn't doing that early in other games, and that's where his forced throws would come in and the interceptions. And so you kind of found a little bit more about Georgia in that they still had that dog in them. Tennessee's offense just went cold. They just didn't show up in the second half,
Nico's kind of been up and down all year. He missed one kind of open throw. His QBR wasn't bad, 75. Carson Beck's QBR is on a scale of 0 to 100. He was 98, so almost perfect according to the QBR metrics. He had 3 carries, 32 yards, 1 touchdown, Robert, to your point there. We are getting a message in the chat. Rob, change your microphone settings. They're on your webcam right now, it says.
Doesn't let me do that when I'm in the thing.
Oh, well, then I guess we're stuck
If you
with.
mute your microphone, you might be able to then. Oh, no, never mind. Well, womp womp.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to hear Robin poor quality. Continue, Micaiah.
So this brings up an interesting situation in the SEC because a bunch of teams now have 2 conference losses. The only one with not a conference loss, the only 2 teams will play next week, which is the Texas Longhorns and the Texas A&M Aggies. I think Georgia's hoping for an Aggies loss, right? Because either way, it doesn't matter. Even if A&M beats Texas, then Georgia holds a tiebreaker there. So Georgia's all but in, right? Assuming they win out.
I don't know, because where does that put Ole Miss? Because Ole Miss has a tiebreaker over Georgia.
Yeah, and I'm not going to Google the tiebreakers
You know
of the
what I mean?
SEC because, dude, we're going to be all the way down at like step
Do
like
you want
19.
me to refresh again so that I could switch
you're
it to
fine.
the other man?
I don't care.
Simeon
good.
just looks just so distraught right now.
Oh,
That's
I
how-
am for other reasons, though. Don't worry.
Okay.
So that was the game of the week. So Georgia, I think it'll be very interesting to see where the college football playoff rankings committee ranks them. That show has started. It is quote unquote moments away. And they should be top 10. What you think? Like 7? We're now starting. They're going to start with 25 here in a minute. Robert, why they kind of get up? Illinois back ranked at 25. Colorado. Talk about Colorado and kind of the turnaround they're having. I think now officially they are sitting at the top of the Big 12. UNLV's ranked first time.
Well, I think they're technically second, but for whatever way, because I think when the conference things are the same. There it is, Missouri 23.
How is Missouri still ranked? Stop with this. Why are they still ranked?
So that everybody can have a good win against Missouri.
Oh
That's
my
the
God.
12 through 1.
ESPN loves it. They love
Missouri's-
the SEC.
Everyone, Missouri's 23, and they lost. They didn't move down. They didn't move down to 25. They didn't move at all. They were 23 last week. Arizona State got ranked. Way to be, by the way. Arizona State Coach of the Year
in their game against BYU by 3 points.
Yeah, so
This weekend.
way to be. Oh, by the way, Arizona, if they win out, they're probably in the Big 12 title game.
Do you know what this does, though?
What's that?
So if Boise State beats Arizona State, or not Boise State, BYU, this gives them a quality win.
Yeah.
You
It
know what I
does,
mean?
but I mean, Arizona
it looks
State's
better
8-2,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tulane is 20. Wow, Tulane rising fast. They're a team to keep an eye on. So Colorado, feelings on Colorado? They're playing Kansas, who's trying to play spoilers to everybody. What are the feelings on Colorado?
I mean, the feelings essentially don't change with Colorado, just because they're still doing what they need to do. They're playing football. When they win, and they're kind of at the point where they hold the keys to their own destiny. They just have to win.
South Carolina at 18.
I still don't think Travis Hunter is the Heisman favorite, even though he can do as many Heisman poses as he wants on the field. He's not the best corner in college football. He's not the best wide receiver in college football. There's a running back at Boise State who is going to eclipse 2,000 rushing yards and have over 30 rushing touchdowns.
Committee is not really valuing what Colorado's doing. Only moved them up 1-16 at 8-2. Clemson 17, South Carolina 18, Army 19, where Boise State comes into play, in Tulane 20. Army Navy play each other in the American Conference Championship game.
Do we get Boise State at 4 today?
Maybe, probably. I would think so.
How awesome would that be?
That would be
Texas
very
A&M at 15.
Texas A&M 15. So in between here, why don't BYU all the way to 14 dropped 8 spots.
I mean, it wasn't
Not 8 spots worthy though.
dude, as long as they're not an SEC team, they drop anywhere from 8 to 15. If they're an SEC team,
this really goes,
Georgia dropped a long while, right? Georgia dropped
I think 6.
This really goes to show you that the committee really only values the Big Ten and the SEC at this point.
Yeah,
They don't care about the ACC. They don't care about the Big 12. They don't care about anybody else. Did Washington State lose another game yet?
I don't think so.
No, Washington State only has 1 loss.
So where are they? Probably ranked at like 24 or whatever.
SMU up to 13. All right, let's go Ponies. I'm excited for this. So after this, we can chat about this, Simeon, or we can just get right into previews. There's a little bit to talk about for this upcoming week. Indiana, Ohio State, and then we got to do locks yet.
Yeah, I mean, as we're kind of watching this, I don't even know the games. I haven't even I know the games. I made my locks because I actually prepared this time, unlike normal.
Boise is 12.
So that means they're keeping Tennessee in the top 11.
I think Boise still is the 4th highest ranked conference, right? Because we would have...
We got Ole Miss, Florida...
Well, no, this is them at 12. They can't be ranked 4.
No, they can be. This is the top 25. Tennessee above at 11.
Drops to 11.
This is the top 25. Then based on the top 25, then they put them into the bracket.
Do you know what game might be an upset this week that we're not talking about enough?
I see what you're saying. I thought this was what they were doing. All right.
No, yeah, you're good.
I was confused.
Georgia number 10. UMass at Georgia.
Oh, you think?
Yeah, there's a freaking barn burner there.
I almost took UMass plus the points.
Fired. No, not Mac Brown.
So here we go again. Ole Miss.
So there's your head-to-head.
The committee values head-to-head so much. I've never seen a committee value head-to-head more than this committee in 2024.
Well,
every other committee, it was
Lord
like
Manuel. He really likes going head-to-head with people.
Head-to-head doesn't really matter.
Except
this. Yeah, they're at 11.
Miami moves up 1 spot to 8. That doesn't make sense. Then again, this whole thing doesn't make sense.
What did Alabama do that they deserve to jump 3 spots?
But they beat up on Mercer.
Roll Tide, dude. Roll Tide.
Number 1.
Did they play Mercer this past weekend, or did they actually play a real school?
No, they played. I think they played Mercer this weekend. No, yeah. I don't know.
Notre Dame up 2 spots. Come on. Yeah, I think
he takes on Army this weekend. Actually,
yeah, that's a big game. Okay, so Indiana's 5. The top 4 really shouldn't change.
Well,
they're doing this differently.
They could drop
2 weeks.
Texas up to 2.
Oh, we're gonna take our break.
So speaking of Indiana, let's just get into Indiana, Ohio State. Robert, when the only other time that Indiana has gone up against a quote-unquote helmet school, that would be Michigan, with someone who definitely has better recruited athletes at their school and maybe better development. It was a 5-point win at home. They're now going on the road to one of the most expensive teams in college football, $20 million roster, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Will Howard, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Abuka. The list goes on and on and on. It's Ohio State minus 13 right now, I think, at 13.5 it's up to right now. Is this still Penn State at 4? Are we thinking Indiana's going to be able to hang in there? Texas at 3?
So, I think what's happening is they are overlooking
the other 5, Ohio State
Indiana tremendously. If Indiana was home, I think it would be a totally different story. I still think Indiana's going to win this game. I just think that they're looking at it and saying, well, Indiana hasn't played anybody. Ohio State has played Penn State on the road and won.
And lost to Oregon for your strength of schedule
but like
argument.
Ohio State, for having the team that they haven't flexed anything. Like they're not playing like they have this world beater of a team.
Yeah, boy.
Sorry.
Whoa.
Boise State at 4, baby.
So Boise State would be currently as ranked. They currently are the 4th highest potential
That's awesome.
Conference winner. So they would be the 4th seed and get a bye. Oregon would be 1. Miami would be 3. Texas would be 2. Again, giving that all of these teams how they're ranked to move up.
Which puts BYU at 12, given that they're the other highest ranked conference champion.
Yes. Georgia would be the so the first team out would be Tennessee. The second team out would be SMU. Ohio State would be the 5 seed. Notre Dame would be the 8. Penn State would be the 6. Indiana would be the 7 seed. And then Georgia would be the 10. Ole Miss would be the 9. And I'm sorry. Georgia would be 11. Ole Miss would be 10. And Alabama would be 9.
You had to wait exactly 2 seconds.
Love that game.
Remember, the first round games, the higher seed is the home team. Those games are on campus. Makai, thank you very much. As he
just real quick,
that.
For those of you watching on YouTube, Spotify, wherever, this is what this week's rankings would look like if the season ended today with the conference winners.
So, one of the things I want to talk about is I think this is the least consequential of all the rankings that we have until the end. Least consequential, because we know BYU is going to change. We know Ohio State and Indiana is going to change. Do Georgia and Ole Miss play? Does Ole Miss Alabama play yet?
Ole Miss beat Georgia, and Bama plays Oklahoma, and then they play Auburn. So, Alabama's done with their tough games.
And Texas has Texas A&M left.
Georgia has what?
Georgia has no, that was South Carolina.
Massachusetts and Georgia Tech.
Yeah,
correct. And Texas will have.
Ole Miss has Florida, Mississippi State. So essentially,
Notre Dame.
Go ahead.
Notre Dame has Army and USC yet. That's it.
So what I'm saying is, I don't think this is going to look. We
absolutely not.
We don't know who the SEC champ's going to be yet.
Right.
That's the biggest question. And I think as soon as we find out who, I think we'll know this weekend what the Big Ten looks like. Because of all these mega champions, we didn't know until today that Oregon technically clinched. Until someone changed one number on the spreadsheet, until Oregon clinched the Big Ten championship game today, with 2 games left of the season. So,
Oregon.
Oh, 1 game left. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, there's a bunch of good games. Let's get to the games. Let's go over to the games because I think these rankings are so inconsequential. That's the not correct English. Bear with me. 12 o'clock game slate. We got Indiana, Ohio State. We already talked about it. Ole Miss takes on Florida. That game means a little bit more now, especially.
I think it's going to be closer than the 10.5. Because of what Robert said, if DJ Lagway plays, that Florida team is really different. This Florida team is fighting for bowl eligibility. They're 5-5. They got 2 more games to go. Ole Miss has shown a tendency to fall asleep on offense. Their defense is good, but Florida's defense isn't half bad either. Florida is a team that if you don't take seriously, they're going to get you. And they're fighting hard, and Florida has not given up yet. So, and it's at the Swamp. And the Swamp is very different now because now they beat LSU, and now they're actually starting to feel themselves a little bit. And Ole Miss is rolling in there at 9, and all you got to do if you're Ole Miss is win out, and you're probably in. And trap game, because if Ole Miss loses one more time, they're gone. And Ole Miss has an expensive roster too. So this is a very big game. All the pressure in the world falls on Ole Miss, and Florida is playing with house money and a true freshman quarterback and a coach that's returning next year. Robert, what do you think of this number 10.5?
I'm kind of okay with it just because I don't think that Florida has necessarily faced a defense as good as Ole Miss. This defense, like, they're going to get a ton of pressure on DJ. Whether they can actually get him, that's a totally different story because DJ can use his feet very well. But Ole Miss, like, they lead the country. 46 sacks this year.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot, man.
They're incredible. Yeah.
So a lot of it's just going to depend on if they can get to DJ. This game's going to get out of hand real quick, and Ole Miss is just going to be riding the pony. So,
and then Simeon, I don't mean to be doing your job, but now BYU Arizona State is a ranked on ranked matchup.
It is. I was going to get there. I was going to go by time slot.
I apologize. I'll let you take back over. Go for it.
No, let's go talk about the ASU BYU game. That was going to be my pick, my money line pick. I don't know if things changed. I don't know if things changed between ESPN bets and FanDuel.
Arizona State's -3 right now, so they would be the favorite.
Correct. They're the favorite. But when I looked on ESPN at like 5, they were the underdog. Unless I misread, I am dyslexic, so probably let's go with that one. But that means that that's no longer a pick for me because I'm not going to take a money line on the favorite. 3.5, to me, it feels more like 0. This game feels very even. Just me?
No, Arizona State's had a quiet, incredible run. Again, for those that missed, I heard that the Big 12 is really messy with conference standings right now. But if the Arizona State Sun Devils win out, more than likely, again, they have to get like one team to help them. But how it essentially works is Arizona State, if they beat BYU and then win next week, beat Arizona, they are in the Big 12 championship game. They're third right now. They are third behind BYU and Colorado. So if they beat BYU, immediately up there with Colorado, assuming Colorado wins this weekend.
The person they have to get to help them is Kansas this weekend.
Okay. All right.
For sure. Kansas has to upset Colorado.
So Kenny Dillingham has done a tremendous job with Arizona State. They were under sanctions. I think they still are technically under sanctions from the NCAA for recruiting violations, not from a previous administration. So this is
you can't say the dude's name?
I forgot it. I forgot his name.
I just said it. Man, you're as bad as my wife. You don't listen sometimes.
Okay. So, Robert, what do we think of Arizona State and BYU?
This game could. What time is this game?
3. So it's 3. So I think it's like noon their time.
So we're gonna go from probably the best game of the weekend in Indiana, Ohio State, into probably the second best game of the weekend, and we just have to hope that there is an even better game in the late end, or we're gonna just totally crash because this game should be a very good, high-scoring game.
Kansas, Colorado play at the same time slot. Love that because I think that is going to be a very high-scoring game there between Kansas and Colorado. Robert, to your point, the biggest game in the 7 window is Army Notre Dame, which I think is a clash of styles and very exciting, and hopefully Army's quarterback can play, Bryson Daly. But then it's Alabama at Oklahoma, Texas A&M at Auburn, Iowa State at Utah, whole bunch of nothing after that. 10:30 NBC is USC UCLA.
Yeah, we got the battle for LA.
Congratulations.
5, 4, and 6.
Let's absolutely
We got Fresno. We got Fresno State, Colorado State.
Yeah, we got Air Force, Nevada.
No Hawaii late game.
Does Army cover the 14.5?
Yes.
No.
I think they do because I think that's an upset.
Robert, Notre Dame's six now. We know they need to join the conference. I don't want to get into all that. Is Notre Dame actually good?
No, because they're going to lose to Army.
I'm going to be honest with you. They kind of been looking like it. I mean, ever since they lost to Northern Illinois, they've kind of been on a tear. They haven't scored less than, 30? Well, okay, they had 28 against Miami, Ohio, but they haven't scored less than 30. And the only team that scored more than 20 was Louisville. And we've seen Louisville play tough against other teams. I mean, my fear is this turns into another Notre Dame Navy game. It shouldn't. It probably won't, because I think Army is going to be able to take, because that was a big turnover game. I think Navy will take care of the ball better, but I still think that Notre Dame comes away with this.
He means Army's going to take care of the ball better. This is going to be what we've seen a couple different games now, but Army put on the clinic for it. We're going to see Army play the game of time of possession, because they know that they have the athletes to move the ball 10 yards at a time, and they will sit on that for 45 seconds and then snap the ball in between. And they're going to play that game because they'll march down the field literally 2 yards at a time, 3 yards at a time, and they'll waste an entire quarter that way.
North Texas, shout out, let's go.
And that, I think, was what's gonna do them in. So if you're Notre Dame, I'm sure you've been game planning for that all week. But I'm not picking this game. But if I was, it's Army money line. Yes, Notre Dame is much better than they have been in the past, but they're still Notre Dame. They still haven't proven that they can show up in the big games yet when they need to, and they haven't for like a decade. So that's my take. Let's go ahead and move on down the road. Of course, my transitions don't play. You gotta love it.
Oh, there we go.
It is. Move 20 yards down the field. We're gonna go ahead and move on over to picks. Obviously, you guys know how a TV works. You can look up your own games, but those are some of the ones we're going to be watching. One in each time slot at least, with an eye on Thanksgiving and Turkey Day next week. Maybe just me.
Simeon, are you actually going to watch games, or are you just going to fake your way through every podcast like you normally do?
Okay, again, not wrong. That's what I pay you two for.
Robert, that's Wesley's favorite word, so that's really funny that you said that. Shout out
Wesley.
Nephew Wesley.
Shout out Ka-chow. No, okay, so
Pacow, as they say.
Pacow, as they said. But also, like, I watched a lot of football.
Yeah, this past weekend. Yeah. Like every other weekend you haven't, though.
It only took you till week 12.
Guys, I have a wife. She demands a lot, and I like giving her things, okay? Because she then gives me things.
Yeah. For everyone who is wondering, Michigan tries to become bowl eligible, hosting Northwestern Senior Day, 3:30 FS1. Robert, any thoughts on Michigan Northwestern?
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think Michigan wins.
Do they cover the 11?
I'm going to go ahead and say that they do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Very sloppy, but I think they do.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, they're coming off a bye. Yeah. Throw caution into the wind. Get this dub and get bowl eligible.
Okay. Robert's dog's ready. I am taking it. Game's actually on right now, so we will know. I actually have to look this up because it's not. Akron right now is playing Kent State. KSU. The over-under at the beginning of the game was 49.5. These teams should get demoted. Give me the under at 49.5 for Akron and KSU.
Simeon, I am going to go the opposite way in the biggest way because at this point, I just don't care. The over-under is 73.5 for East Carolina and North Texas, and I'm going to take all of that over because these are two of the highest scoring teams in the FBS. The only time both of these teams have scored under like 30 points have been when they played Army, and neither of them are playing Army. So I'm going to go over 73.5 because I don't care anymore, and I'm in last place. So let's
what
go.
would that be? 37 points apiece?
Roundabout.
Yeah, roundabout or North Texas played whoever they played UTSA last week. They lost 47-28. The over-under for that game was 71.5, so that works too.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, boy. So we got to go, you know what? Indiana, Ohio State, you know? You got to pick it. You got to Indiana plus 13.5. I think they're getting very disrespected by everybody at this moment, and Ohio State is going to sit there, cry the tears. Everyone can comment on TikTok, whatever you want to, and Ohio State, that you can go sit at home with Penn State because Indiana's going to go play Oregon in the Big Ten championship.
I guess this game is for the Big Ten championship, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Oregon. Oh, by the way, the Big Ten was trying to figure out tiebreakers so hard that they missed the fact that Oregon had already qualified with their win on Saturday over Wisconsin in a spot for the Big Ten championship. So Oregon has already booked their trip to
Micaiah.
Indianapolis.
We already covered this.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Oh,
Simeon did a very good job at it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
I wasn't
Robert.
listening.
I don't think it was that great. Give me Kansas to upset Colorado. Money line. Just money line. Guys, I don't know. I think these teams are playing with a specific level of swagger. I'm just going based off of vibes. I think Kansas is going to upset Colorado, and that's all I got for you.
You know what? I'm just gonna go in the noon window. Florida, Ole Miss. I'm shooting this off the hip. I'm just finding things that I like, and I'm just doing this. So noon window, Florida, Ole Miss. I love Ole Miss's defense, as Robert said. They're number one in the country in sacks. These SEC games kind of hit the under, which means this one's going over because I am 3 games below 500. Give me the under of 55.5 for Ole Miss, Florida.
Yeah, let's go Notre Dame Army.
Oh, big games, Robert.
Yeah,
Mr. Big Boy, big games over here.
Yeah, we're gonna. It's time to get crazy, you know. I'm gonna take Notre Dame minus 14.5. And to me, it's kind of one of those win-win situations. If Notre Dame wins by 15, it's a win for me. If Notre Dame gets upset by Army, it's a win for me. I would really actually like Army to win because then that creates a very big scenario who gets in between Boise State and Army, because Army would definitely have a better resume per se, better quality win. But yeah, I guess we'll just take those Fighting Irish minus 14.5.
Wow. Me and Robert could not be further apart. Oh, that's me. I'm up next.
Dog, what are you doing?
I'm taking a Friday night game. So we got a game that's on currently as we're recording. We got a game that's on Saturday afternoon, and now we have a Friday night game where the Boilermakers go into Purdue at 8 p.m. on Fox. The Boilermakers go into East Lansing at 8 p.m. on Fox. Purdue has shown absolutely no spirit to win any ball game. MSU's getting 13.5. MSU's at least shown some level of fight. Give me Michigan State minus 13.5.
That means it would be me. Guys, I'll leave it up to you. Should I go Penn State, Minnesota, or Michigan, Northwestern?
Down below.
To do the Michigan Northwestern because I am stuck between 2 picks. So if you could just take that pick for me, that'd be great.
That would be a good one.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna go Michigan minus 11. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pull the trigger. They're coming off of the bye week. I think that's it. They're coming off of the bye week.
Michigan's gonna get upset this weekend by Northwestern.
Michigan. So Michigan's going to lose.
Davis
Michigan's
Warren's
not
going to throw 3 picks.
More
2
than
of them are going to
likely-
be 2 pick sixes.
5-5, 4-6. It's not an upset. Let's be real. Just because
So-
it's a name doesn't mean it's an upset.
Michigan minus 11 because I think that Northwestern is sloppy and Michigan's coming off the bye and will be slightly less sloppy. Give me Michigan Northwestern.
Well, in reality, I kind of wanted to do the Akron-Kent State game, but, the game started, and I was like, I don't want to be that guy to go and take a game that's already started on, someone else on this podcast. So it's cool.
I picked it before the game started, so don't even at me on that one.
So I said, do I want to do Thursday? Nah, I don't want to do Friday. Nah, I don't want to do another Saturday game. So I was like, let's go Wednesday, November 20th. 7 p.m. There's only 2 games. Cutting me off early. I love it.
No,
We're going to go
Sorry.
Toledo versus Ohio. The game, most people probably won't watch this game because it's a MAC game, but this is actually a very big MAC game. Both teams 7-3, pretty much the battle for the top of the MAC minus Miami, Ohio.
Yeah.
So
That's big.
Toledo is a 2-point favorite. I have not seen either of these teams play. It's in Toledo, Ohio, so it's an Ohio versus Ohio matchup. Give me the Rockets -2, the moon.
Nice. I love
You
that.
like that? That was
I
good,
do
wasn't
like
it?
that for you. That was good for you.
Yeah,
Action
took me
is
an hour to
not
think of that.
Not the only trash can conference. Got the Sun Belt down there. Don't forget about them. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your college football Saturday.
Wash your hands, you filthy animals.